joyful hearts together, let us worship God. Words which come to us from the Gospel of Matthew. Come to me, all you who labor and who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest in your souls.
And this prayer, let us pray. This morning, God, in this great cathedral of nature, may we see and experience and know. May we have eyes to see and ears to hear, and the Spirit to guide all our ways. Amen.
The sun is shining on both sides of the street. The sun is shining on both sides of the street. I got a smile on my face for every little woman I see. My pocket's filled up to the top with dough. My pocket's filled up to the top with dough. There's a place up the street we can really rock and roll. I got a brand new suit, a new pair of shoes. The stuff I got, you sure can't use. Come on, help me to spend this dough. There's a place up the street can really rock and roll. I got a brand new suit, a new pair of shoes. The stuff I got, you sure can use. Come on, help me to spend this dough. There's a place up the street where we can really rock and roll. I got cream sandwiches, Dixie cups, popsicles, and push-ups. I'm your ice cream man. Stop, I want to pass them by. I cool you off, little girl, you won't be dissatisfied.
Good morning.
So delighted that you were here, and we especially welcome those of you who are visitors or guests or with us for the first time. I want to say thank you to our musicians, Mike and Rob and Bruce. Now, very importantly, next week, no service at 8:30, no service at 9:30, but we do have our annual picnic, and that's at 10 o'clock. Picnic begins at 10. Right at 11 o'clock, the Klutschka family will have those burgers already cooked up and whatever else we're serving up. And that's from 11 o'clock till whenever, till 1. Yeah, we're out of here by 1. Local artist Mark McMahon, who many of you know, is going to be set up right over there, and he's going to be creating an original painting of the Worship on the Beach experience and picnic. And then we'll make prints available, so you can hang that up in your house in the middle of winter when you're kind of bumping out. You can say, oh, Worship on the Beach is going to be here soon. So, and also, a week from tomorrow will be Net Game. Net Game is a basketball program that we started last year. Middle of summer, Lake Forest High School plays Orr Academy High School, who won the state championship again this year. What's changed is that this year we're also bringing in 2 historic teams. Both New Trier will be playing Marshall High School from the city, and so it's kind of blossoming in a wonderful way. And that will be at Lake Forest High School on Monday. It begins on noon, July 2nd.
Dancing Bohemian ukulele team.
The Dancing Bohemian ukulele team.
And what will they be wearing?
This shirt. We have new costuming for the Dancing Bohemians. So that'll be next week. And Ben Johnston Crace, who is the founder of the Farm Church in North Carolina, where our kids just spent, 30 kids from the church just spent a week or 5 days. He's going to be in town, and he's going to preach next week. Great guy. We'd like to have you get to know him. And the question is this: what would you do differently if you were to live your life over? What would you do differently if you... I see some smiles on some faces, and a few of you have thought about this. Well, the first reflection comes from Nadine Stair. She wrote this when she was 85 years old, living in Louisville, Kentucky. Nadine writes, "If I had my life to live over, I'd make more mistakes next time. I'd relax. I'd limber up. I'd be sillier than I was on this trip. I know very few things that I would take seriously. I'd take more trips. I'd be crazier. I'd climb more mountains. I'd swim more rivers. I'd watch more sunsets. I'd do more walking and looking. I'd eat more ice cream and fewer beans. I'd have more actual troubles and fewer imaginary ones. You see, I'm one of those people who lives prophylactically and sensibly hour after hour, day after day. Oh, I've had my moments, but if I were to do it over again, I'd have more. In fact, I try to have nothing else. Just moments, one after another, instead of living so many years in advance, ahead of each day. I've been one of those people who never goes anywhere without a thermometer, a hot water bottle, a gargle, a raincoat, an aspirin, and a parachute. If I had it to do over again, I'd go places, I'd do things, and I'd travel lighter than I have. If I had my life to live over, I would start barefooted earlier in the spring and stay that way later into the fall. I would play hooky more. I wouldn't make such good grades except maybe by accident. I'd ride more merry-go-rounds, and I'd pick more daisies. What would you do differently if you had your life to live over? Now the second, from the late writer Irma Bombeck. Some of you remember her. This was a column by the same theme, but it was one that she penned after she found out from her physician that she was terminally ill with cancer. Irma writes, If I had my life to live over, I would have gone to bed when I was sick instead of pretending the earth would go into a holding pattern if I weren't there for a day. I would have burned the pink candle sculpted like a rose before it melted in storage. I would have talked less and listened more. I would have invited friends over to dinner even if the carpet was stained or the sofa was faded. I would have eaten popcorn in the good living room and worried much less about the dirt when someone wanted to light a fire in the fireplace. I would have taken the time to listen to my grandfather ramble on and on about his childhood. I would have shared more responsibility carried by my husband. I would never have insisted the car windows be rolled up on a summer day because my hair had just been teased and sprayed. I would have sat on the lawn even though I'd get grass stains. I would have cried and laughed less while watching television and more while watching life. I would never have bought anything just because it was practical, didn't show soil, or was guaranteed to last a lifetime. Instead of wishing away my 9 months of pregnancy, I'd have cherished every moment and realized that the wonderment growing inside me was my only chance in life to assist God in a miracle. When my kids kissed me impetuously, I would never have said, "Later, now let's go get washed up for dinner." There would be more I love yous, and more I'm sorry's. But mostly, if I had another shot at life, I would seize every minute, look at it, and really see it, and then live it and not give it back. If given another shot, I'd stop sweating the small stuff. If you had your life to live over, what would that life look like?
Heard the warden say, I had one more day, one more meal before they carry me away. He said, if we ain't got it, we'll go out and get it. 'Cause you don't have to go until we get back with it. So I said, bring me 2 dinosaurs, eggs over easy, fried in some butter, but not too greasy. Mosquito knees and black-eyed peas and a big small bowl of buttered bebop bees. A zebra tooth and a lion steak and a whole hippopotamus well baked. Now go and get my dinner. Now go and get my dinner now. If we ain't got it, we'll go out and get it. 'Cause you don't have to go until we get back with it. Crocodile tears, a paper watermelon, and some alligator ears. 2 cross-eyed catfish and some wavy gravy on a left-handed dish. Now go and get my dinner. Now go and get dinner now. If we ain't got it, we'll go out and get it. 'Cause you don't have to go until we get back with it. Bring me an order of rattlesnake hips, the split of his tongue, and bring me both of his lips. Now you have my order, now bring my dish with a female tomato I can't resist. Now go and give my dinner, now go and give my dinner now. If we ain't got it, we'll go out and get it. 'Cause you don't have to go until we get back with it.
Ken, I think we finally found a song to replace the community song that we can all sing together and get back to the chapel. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
That's a true story.
Let's see. Well, let's pray. Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight. For you are the rock of our lives, and you are our Redeemer. Amen. So the first portion of the message is about two wonderful women, Nadine Steer, 85 years old. And then after receiving news that she was terminally ill with cancer, award-winning columnist and author Irma Bombeck each wrote frank and I think inspiring essays on what they do if they were to live their lives over. And now we take a head-first leap into the second half of the message, and where we A, get biblical, and B, I set a world record for pH. Any guesses on what pH stands for? Pastoral hypocrisy. Okay, maybe not a world record, but at least a personal best, okay? This is where Tom the preacher man, barefoot standing in front of you, says to all of you, it would be a really, really good idea if you started doing something that he both has never done himself and doesn't have much likelihood of ever doing. What we're talking about is the Sabbath. The commandment, mind you, one of the big 10, right? The commandment that only, by virtue of all of us, not do. But we kind of act as if it doesn't even exist. Sabbath is the idea that every seventh day we take a full 24 hours off and do nothing but rest. It's not a day to catch up. It's not a day to get ahead. It's a day to rest, to let your shoulders down, to let the muscles in your face and the rest of your body go limp. The Bible in Exodus reads, "Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no work, you or your son or your daughter, or your servants, or your livestock, or the sojourner who's within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in it, and then rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Sabbath is designed to be a day when we can fill our lungs with air naturally, not in the quickened pace determined by our work or an often frenetic society. Sabbath is when we allow our weary souls to catch up to our lives. When we take the time to notice children playing in the sand or in our neighborhoods, and we watch them to the point where we really feel their joy. Sabbath is when we take the time to see the sorts of things that when we're rushing about, we don't see. Like the robin's nest outside your bedroom window, and you hear Mother Robin feeding the chirping babies, and as you watch, you notice in the nest what appears to be some lint, and you realize that Mama Robin has woven in some lint from your dryer vent that she found to make it a fabulous nest. Sabbath is when we pause to feel the sun and the wind on our skin, and we get a sense of creation that gives us a tiny clue about the Creator. Sabbath is when we gaze at billowy clouds and we dream about what forms they are. Sabbath sounds so good, doesn't it? But we don't do it. And any finger I point at all of you, there's about 5 fingers pointing back at myself, because I'm in the exact same place. And I think the reason that we don't practice Sabbath is because on mornings like this, guys like me make proclamations like, we belong to God. And I believe that with all my heart. But the truth is, most of the time when we're making decisions based on the world that we belong to. We take our cues from free enterprise and from advertising and from our culture. A culture that says, just do it. And you better do it now because you don't have much time. And Nadine Stair and Irma Bombeck, they can write these wonderful fantasies about if you had a chance to live your life over, but guess what, you don't. So you better get the show on road right now because times are wasted. And there's no time for rest. What happened to this commandment that we're supposed to practice the Sabbath? That both seems to make God very happy and would appear to make us very happy. Well, it used to exist. And those of you who are 60 years old and over probably remember that Sundays were a lot different, at least where I lived here in the Midwest 50 years ago. Taking Sundays off was kind of the norm. It was partly because church and organized religion back in those days very much shaped our society. It's partly because blue laws were in place. You know what blue laws are? They say, here, you can't do this stuff on Sunday. In the state of Illinois, there's only 2 blue laws that remain today. You can't buy a car from an auto dealership, and you can't go horse racing. Anything else, have at it. Partly gone away because our culture, beyond church and business, has said yes to Sabbath. That's what happened 50 years ago. Nowadays, church and organized religion have less of a role in our culture and society than any time in the history of the United States. The only remaining blue laws are horse racing and automobile dealerships. And our culture has happily banished the idea of rest and relaxation, and we've turned Sunday, A, into a day of commerce and business, and B, into a day to catch up on all the things we didn't get done, and C, to get ready and try and get ahead for the busy week that is before us. Sundays have become a day to do rather than be. And the craziest thing of all, in thinking about Sabbath, it was a long time ago that I was in college, but it doesn't seem like it that long ago, middle 70s, late 70s. And I remember listening to one professor in particular talk about how the world was going to change and how exciting it was going to be. Because technology was going to speed up the pace of everything. And what that meant is that you and I would have 3- and 4-day work weeks. And what are we going to do with all this leisure time? We'll have 3- and 4-day weekends. It's just the opposite has happened, right? Not only do we not have more downtime, we have less, and anything relating to Sabbath has pretty much gone away. And I bet for many folks, being here on Sunday morning for an hour, listening to the music, listening to words, listening to waves, may very well be the closest thing most of us have to a Sabbath. Now, as I reflected on what do I do with this fact that I completely blow off this commandment? What do we do in a culture that doesn't give us a lot of space to take a day off, at least for most of us? The answer to a Sabbathless society, I think, first is not to feel guilty because we don't do guilt. Okay? Second, is not to feel depressed or discouraged. I think the challenge is to, instead of think about what's really unlikely that will never happen, what can happen relating to Sabbath. And I think a starting point are these experiences. To just even take an hour and kind of be still and be surrounded by family and friends and listen to the water and the waves and the music and some words. But it seemed to me that there was more than that might be available to us, so I took it upon myself for the last couple of weeks to do a pastoral experiment. And I came up with 3 Sabbath-light experiences. Very briefly, tell you how those went. First, I decided that a Sabbath kind of light experience could be if I went for a walk for an hour. Not to walk the dog, not because my doctor told it would be good for me, not to lose weight, not for any reason other than to walk. And I purposefully left my phone behind. And so I went for a walk, and I can tell you that that experience was pretty close to a complete failure. And the reason it was, I'm walking along, what happens? Oh, I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. And then I'm starting to get stressed. Wait, I don't have my phone. How am I going to remember this stuff? Oh, maybe if I alphabetize them, I can do that. Blah, 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 blah. And by the time, I'm practically sprinting to get back to the office because I've got all these ideas. It was probably a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. Well, then it was time for pastoral experiment number 2. I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to that nice upstairs room and sit on one of those funky little cushions that Zach bought for meditation and stuff like that. And I locked the front door of the office so no one would stop by. Turned off my phone, and I cheated a little bit because I put the cushion up against the wall, could feel a little better on my back. And I closed my eyes, and I started to focus on my breathing. Tried to let my shoulders down, and it was silent. And I inhaled, and I exhaled, and I inhaled, and I exhaled, and in pretty short order, I was in this blissful state that some people call sleep. Another failure! Now, truth be told, I've meditated before. Probably what I need, is help from someone like Zach. We have folks meditate before every one of these services. That's available to you. Every Wednesday morning at 6:30 in the morning and 9 o'clock, there's meditation available. That's a big part of our church's life. And maybe what I learned is that I need to do it with other people, and be guided in that process, not just go upstairs and fall asleep. So finally, last pastoral experiment, it occurred to me there was an opportunity right in downtown Lake Bluff. And so I went over to Floatstone. Do you know what Floatstone is? Downtown Lake Bluff. It's run by a friend of ours, Susie McMurray, and her son Patrick. Susie sometimes plays music with us. And Floatstone features, among other things, sensory deprivation tanks. And so I was blown away when I walked inside. Not only is the whole place really incredibly well done, first class, but I also kind of felt like I was in Sedona rather than downtown Lake Bluff. And so I figured I'd schedule a 1-hour float in a sensory deprivation tank. And I happened to have a suit on, which is rare enough for me. And I walk in and say, "Can I schedule an hour?" And they said, "Well, why not do it right now?" And I thought to myself, I never have any fun anymore. I never do anything spur of the moment. Let's go for it. And 10 minutes later, there I was in a completely dark room, floating sans clothing, complete silence. And I have to tell you, it was pretty wonderful. And beyond that 60 minutes where I did struggle with, I wonder how long this is going to last, and I wonder if it's almost over, and what am I going to do when I get out of here? You know, because there wasn't these sorts of things going on, it was pretty easy to relax. It was wonderful. And I'd say that was probably, even though it's not going to fit into my regular budget, you know, it was kind of an 8 out of 10, also because I kept that feeling with me for a while after I left. So having had these experiences, I sat down to write them up for this message. And I said to myself, short order, "Tom, you are such an idiot because you've done it again." You know, here you're thinking about Sabbath light and having a chance to do these things. Well, when you do Sabbath, or Sabbath light even for an hour, you don't do it so you can write it up for your sermon. You do it for no reason or purpose other than to do it. Maybe someday, when you and I can let our shoulders down and take a deep breath and breathe in and experience rest for no reason other than to rest, then we'll be able to experience the Sabbath.
You know, she complicated and left me a mute to ride. She complicated and left me a mute to ride. My baby complicated, left me a mule to ride. You know the train pulled out, so I swung behind. Well, I'm crazy about her, that hard-headed woman of mine. You know my baby, you know she's long and she's tall. You know my baby, you know she's long and she's tall. My baby, she long, you know my baby, she tall. She with her head in the kitchen and her big hands. Well, I'm crazy about her, that hard-headed woman of mine. But I love my baby, she's so fine. Will she come and see sometime? Don't believe, look at the whole I'm in. complicated, left me on you to ride. A bit complicated, left me on you to ride. You know the train pulled out, so I'm falling behind. Well, I praise my God, if hard-headed woman of mine.
We have to separate this way. We've been together so long. We have to separate this way. I'll let you go on, baby. Pray that you come back one day. I guess you have changed your mind. Now you know you once I love me. I guess you have changed your mind. Why don't you reconsider, darling? Give yourself just a little more time.
If I had my life to live over, I'd remember life is a distance race and not a sprint. I'd give myself to spirit and intuition, and not so much to culture and power. I'd play golf in high school rather than football. I'd go to the mat less often and the peace table more frequently. I'd learn much sooner that too much of anything is not healthy. I'd be a vegetarian. I'd find Zach much sooner. I'd care less about theology and more about wisdom. I'd make certain you all know how grateful I am for you and how much I love you. And I'd figure out, somehow, how to practice the Sabbath. Friends, go rested, hopefully inspired, and filled with peace. Walk into the world filled with God's light and God's love. The people said,
Amen. I got cream sandwiches, Dixie cups, popsicles, and push-ups. I'm your ice cream man, style I wanna pass it back. I cool you off, little girl, you won't be dissatisfied.